Okay, so 6 months into working together now. I think we are recording this middle of September, and it's actually probably been a bit more, right? Probably about 8 months now working together in the same business, running the business together, but also balancing husband and wife together. What's it been like for you?
Well, it's been just the last 7-8 months. It's been a massive change, and it's been a very positive change.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about the journey of how I got into the business and how it's been working together. But overall, I can say it's been one of the best things that I've done. It's been one of the best decisions that I've made, that we've made, and it's been really, really positive.
Why is that?
It's given me a whole sense of freedom, of purpose. I've been able to do what I do best and learn so many new things. Like every day, there's something new happening, another challenge that I'm going through with the business, and it's just really, really exciting for me. So it's just great being on this same mission with you, being aligned as a couple and in our goals and our mission to deliver what we want through R&T.
Yeah, I think that's been the main thing for me, is that as much as we had an aligned vision together already before, now that we've combined work into it as well, or sort of like is the work that we do together. Now that that's aligned as well, everything feels like it's moving in the same direction, and it's very much a win-win scenario.
Yeah.
In that, if you perform your best, R&T wins. If R&T wins, everyone wins in the team, in the company, in the clients, with our members. So it's a win-win scenario, and I think it's been the best decision we've probably made this year as a couple, because now we're not trying to help. Because before you were doing Fearless Females, and with that, as great as it was almost like a split interest in the household. Not necessarily because it was not in the competitive sense, but more that our energies were sort of split, right? Like I'd be helping you with that, you'd be dipping in with RMT, and we were kind of like, on reflection, what we could have put all into one was being split, whereas now it's just all in one. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. I don't know if I've butchered it.
No, that really is. I feel like we were on two different projects, even before Fearless Females, when I was working in the corporate world. We're on two different projects, let's say, and now it just feels like we had our strengths, which happen to contradict each other, and it just happens to be that we've now come together, united, and it's what's best for the business as well, because our strengths really complement each other.
Well, this is what's really interesting. Like pretty much since we started dating over 4 years ago now, I always said to you, I think you'd be really, really good as like a number 2, number 3, number 4, like someone who's in that space in a fast growth startup who would just run the process, systems, the people, the operations, and you'd be really good at that. And you should find somewhere to work that delivers that, because you're working in a big corporate at Mars. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I'd love to have someone of your caliber in the company, but this was obviously too early on. But I always floated the idea because I spotted that in you straight away, because you have all your strengths are basically what things I don't like to do, and vice versa. So where you're really good at people, process, and systems, and just making sure everything's running like clockwork, I prefer the big vision, sales, marketing, brand, vision, all that sort of stuff comes more naturally to me, whereas for you it's probably less natural, right? So I think the glue is really, really good. There's a great book called Traction, and it talks about the visionary and the integrator in every company. You need a visionary and you need an integrator. The visionaries tends to be sort of big picture thinking, needs loads of space. They love just coming up with ideas and too many ideas. And the integrator is the person who is responsible for funneling those ideas, which I know you do all the time, but also just executing on the ideas themselves. And I think from that perspective, it works really, really well. And if you look at sort of the way most companies are set up, that sort of works really well. And that's been an area I've been trying to fill for so many years. Of like, I know these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses, and I'm very much about how can I plug my weaknesses so I can just focus on my strengths. And that's been such a gaping hole for me. and an area of like, it just takes me out of my flow because of that. I've always tried to fill that area, but I struggled for so many years finding the right person. Whereas I think now we're in the running.
That's good to know. And it's interesting you bring that up, because people, when we talk about a working relationship, we always get asked, oh, well, why didn't you do this sooner? Like,
Yeah.
why is it only now? What made you change your mind? And taking it back, let's say probably 4.5 years or however long it's been since we were dating, I remember probably on our second date, you started talking to me about business.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh, interesting. I knew nothing about business. So it was really interesting just hearing what you were going through in your business. And then over the years, as we were dating, and obviously got married, I've learned more and more about R&T, what you were doing, and I've always been there as like in the background, supporting where I can. Like any questions you had, you could run through me, and we would just talk things through. So from that perspective, I've kind of been there in the background, but we never took the plunge of working together because I had a fear, and I think you may have had a fear as well, around it interrupting our relationship.
Yeah.
Our personal relationship, and I didn't want anything to disrupt what we had, or anything, or anyone to disrupt what we had, and I felt like working together could be a potential for that.
Yeah.
Which is why I just avoided it at all costs. And I was like, oh, I don't know if it's a good idea. And it took this long, probably 2.5 years of talking about working together, and you had already planted the seeds in my head for us to then be like, right, let's actually do it, let's give it a shot. And it was actually quite a scary moment when I came in as well, because I was thinking to myself, owner, founder, CEO, I don't want to be coming in as, oh, Akash's wife. Like, that's the last thing I wanted. I'd built my career. I was very happy in my career as well. And then coming into the business, I was just thinking, like, that's the last thing I want, is just to be known as that. And I thought to myself, I want to be known for my job and for my performance and what I bring to the table. And I think it's kind of, hopefully the team will say it's kind of come to that, and no one now thinks of me as just your wife.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just another team member doing my job.
Well, the funny thing is, you came in like February, and then around March, April, Ed and Ivan on separate occasions said to me, I can't remember which one said it, but one said, how did you not do this sooner? And second one of them said that, and one of them said, it's been the best decision you made this in the last year already.
Oh, that's really nice.
And obviously you don't see you probably won't hear that, but when I heard that, I was like, oh, thank God for that. Even I was like, I had that fear as well, but also mainly it was around the working relationship, because we know so many couples who have either fallen out over it or have tried it and then decided to not do it. They may have been together, they're still together, from a romantic relationship perspective, but their business endeavors have gone in separate ways because they just couldn't find the click. And I think on reflection, there's a few reasons for it. One of them, I think, is because of this visionary integrator relationship that I think works well. Like if you were operating in the way I operate, I think it wouldn't work, because it'd be a constant clash. There'd just be too many ideas around, no one would be getting anything done, and vice versa. I think that's the main reason it works. And I think the second reason is it's just open channels of communication. So it's just adding, we have that weekly check-in, adding another layer to it now is like working on our working relationship, and just being really brutally honest about it, because like whilst it's, we're making it sound like it's been sunshine and roses, we're obviously clashing. Like we probably clash on a daily basis about something, and there's always a bit of a heated argument at least once a day about, and I wouldn't say it's not an argument, it's like heated debate, discussion about something, and it usually involves me getting annoyed about something, not anything you've done, but more like, wow, why can't we do this, why can't we do that? And you're like trying to rein me in half the time, or just making me execute on the things that I discussed 3 months ago. So I think that's been interesting, and that's probably the reason why it has worked well so far anyway. Yeah,
it's interesting you bring up the tense moments, because obviously that exists, right?
Yeah.
When we're clashing about one thing, but the beauty is we then just kind of, 1 minute we're discussing something in a heated environment, and next is like, oh, hi, what's for dinner, and it's very much like we get over things very quickly, because I think we have a very solid foundation from our personal relationship. So that helps as well. But for me, the key thing is, as you were saying, like just getting stuff done. And I think we clash in a sense of, I remember, actually, let me take back, when I started in February, March, you made me read Rocket Fuel, or you suggested a book, it's called Rocket Fuel. And I was very intrigued. I was like, okay, let's give it a go. I read it and it was about a visionary and an integrator, and it made me see just how much of those skill sets and qualities I have from an integrator perspective, and just how much of a visionary you are. And it made me realize how we work very, very differently, and also how to actually work alongside you in a more kind of efficient way. So it made me see just how you want to be spoken to, or just how your thought process works. And that's helped me organize my kind of communication to you a bit better. And I really like that kind of stuff, just understanding more about team characteristics, people, how they work.
Well, that book, Rocket Fuel, is written by the same guy who wrote Traction. I think it's a great book for anyone in business, but also, I think it's a great relationship book if you have those tendencies, because you can learn from like you said, the way someone is processing ideas, or the way someone processes certain things, or the way someone operates. Like, for example, you work in a very much bang, 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 let me just get clear through things and see what's happening. I'm much more like slower paced. I need loads of space. I don't want too many meetings. Like, that's very much the way I like to work, because then I can get my big creative stuff done, but I also just feel in really in my element there. That's why I can come up with the best stuff.
Yeah, and the beauty is there is no right or wrong. It's just dependent on the person and how they like to work. And it's good that we understand each other and how each other works. Then we can use each other to our advantage as well when we're trying to get things done, communicate to the team, or anything it is within the business. So that's.
I think that like when it comes to work, and this is something, whether you run your own business or whether you work in a corporate or a startup environment, I think really being able to identify your strengths and like where your unique zone of capability is like the most powerful thing you can do, not only for yourself, but not only for your company, but for yourself, because it'll make work so much more fun. But secondly, you can just bring so much more value and give so much to the team, and even just to yourself, because when you're operating in that unique strength, and I think a really good exercise that you can do that I did when I was sort of trying to figure out where I fit in the company was like, you ask like people you've known for a long period of time what comes naturally to you, because sometimes you can't even see what you're good at. I think I found that anyway. I was like, what am I good at? Like I always struggle to see like what am I good at. I'm good at seeing the other stuff, right? I'm seeing what am I bad at. But a good exercise I did, and I probably went around the houses quite a bit too much, but asking people you've known for at least say 5 to 10 years, and maybe some long-term colleagues. So I asked some long-term colleagues as well, and asking them what comes naturally to you, what do you do better than most people, and when are you at your best? And the answers you get, you list them all out. Maybe there might be like 5, 6 things, and then you look for the commonalities, and that's where you can really find what you're best at, where you give the most value. And then really, it's the aim of the game is to just carve your days out to be focused around that. Now I think, and that's one thing we do well at RNT. I think everyone in the team is operating in their unique zone of genius. Like a coach is not doing marketing and sales. The coach is just coaching and helping our members get amazing results. They're not wondering about sales or wondering about social media or anything like that, because that's where things get murky. And I think in the fitness industry especially, there's a lot of coaches who just love coaching, they love helping people, but they expect it to be business people as well. But they don't want to do that. They want to have that taken care of so they can focus on what they love. And that's why we're trying to create the infrastructure in the way we do, because we separate the departments. And now we have departments for the first time, which is pretty crazy, right? I think you mentioned it the other day. You're like, oh, we have actual departments.
Yeah,
and even though they're not big, we actually have like
I'd say they're
3
fairly
departments.
big. Yeah. It's really cool to see just how R&T has developed over the years.
Yeah.
And now to see, as you said, we have a coaching team purely focused on coaching, and then we have the managers of the team, like the head of deliveries, in order to kind of manage that team, as well as mentor and drive results and support that team. And I just think it's incredible. I think it's so good that we're focusing on our member results and also continuously training and upskilling our teams, and that goes for every area of the business.
Yeah, one thing we say internally is that anything we do, nothing matters on anything we do, because we'll test a lot of things, right? Like, especially me, I'm always testing something. and coming up with some new ideas. And I think over the last 18 months, we've tried pretty much everything you could think of when it comes to different ways of communicating with members, different ways of helping them, like all the different models. And we always say anything we run has to help transformations, because if it doesn't improve transformations, it's a waste of money, time, or energy. Like that's the only North Star we have is transformations. How many transformations are we delivering? What are the results? That's why we always focus on the wins channel.
Yeah.
Like we have an internal Slack wins channel, and I always say what we do can sometimes be a thankless task, in that as a coach, or if you're in sales, or whatever your focus is, it can sometimes be a thankless task. Because if you're, let's say for example in sales, a lot of people have so many limiting beliefs and fears around going on a transformation journey. Their time to make that commitment of like, yeah, I'm going all in, can be so long sometimes. And you might hear no's so many times because of fear of commitment, of whatever it may be, my spouse, busy, travel, all these limiting beliefs that you may have around doing something like this. It can sometimes become a thankless task. Similarly, for a coach, you can get stuck in the weeds of why is this person not doing, or why isn't this person not just doing what they should be doing? And after a while, you start feeling beaten down by this, right? And that's why we have this internal Slack wins channel. Because I'm like, every week I want to see wins it, no matter what it is. Because normally, and now I think it's popping, right? It's always popping.
There's always member wins.
It's always popping.
Team wins.
Screenshots in the cohorts, team wins.
Facebook group wins.
Whatever it may be. Yeah. And I think it's just important to build a culture of momentum, because momentum for like someone who's trying to transform is a secret source of results. Similarly, I'm starting to learn in that momentum is also the secret source of growth in a company.
Absolutely.
And culture. And when you're trying to cultivate a high performance culture, high performers love results and love momentum and love stacking wins. But high performers are also guilty of always seeing where we can get better. So they don't acknowledge where they've come from, which is why seeing and stacking the wins is so important.
It also really helps our newer team members as well, just to see what's going on in the business, all the great stuff that our members are achieving, as well as what our team members are achieving. So it's really nice just for the newbies as well to get a feel for our culture, the business, what we do, seeing the results. Like it's just it's a great thing that we're doing there.
And just a little segue, we are looking for coaches right now. We are looking for a couple more coaches. To help support our members and support our growth. So if you are listening to this and you know good coaches and you are willing to learn, walk the walk, and you're obsessed with learning about transformation and obsessed with getting the result more than the member does, then get in touch at careers@rntfitness.com. It's not a plug. But back to the podcast, or the main topic here is that I think on reflection, we're starting to find our groove now.
Yeah.
I think whilst we had a lot of, and I think where it's come from is having real clear clarity. And I think one thing I didn't mention earlier was we said two factors why it may not work for people is the lack of complementary relationship, and then potentially there's a lack of solid foundation, you said, or communication.
Yeah.
But I think the third one also is like clearly defined roles.
Yeah, so you're not overlapping each other.
You're not overlapping and doing double work. Because I think at the beginning we were doing a lot of that, and we were doing a lot of like, who's doing this, or am I doing it, are you doing it? And just effectively just drew up a JD of it for each of us. I think that made a difference when we just sat down and said, all right, who's doing this and who's doing that?
Yeah.
And just put a name next to it. And now I think we're getting there.
Yeah, but what's crazy is when I started, there was some form of job description, but what it was back then is completely evolved.
Yeah.
I felt like when I came in, I did my bits that I was doing, and it was more we were testing it. We said, let's try it on a part-time basis. I'll still run my other business, Fearless Females. I'll do R&T part-time, see how it goes. And then as I was progressing more and more into R&T, I just realized I could not give my time and attention to both things. It's almost dividing my attention. So I decided to go all in on R&T. And I was doing something completely different back then. It's almost like that role, the work that I was doing is now, I've delegated to other people and now just focus more on the operational side of things and really adapted this new role.
Yeah.
And once we started defining what our roles were, that helped not only me understand more around, okay, this is you, this is me, but also it helped our team as well. So they can see, right, who do I go to? Because that was the key thing for me. Not doubling up on work, that was just a big thing. Never doing anything twice, that's another thing. And making sure the team know where to go. So they're not going to me and you and someone else and someone else. It's just one point of call for
That's been really interesting, like, as we've grown, is like trying to get clarity of communication. I always used to hear this thing about once you get past 12 people, the biggest struggle is communication, because I can't remember what the stat is, but like how many methods of communication, like how many people can speak to each other, just suddenly goes crazy exponential after 12, and every new person makes it even harder and harder. So having real clarity on like roles, responsibilities, but communication pathways was a real key thing to work on in the last few months, because otherwise what was happening is like someone would say to me, yeah, I've got this problem, who should I go to? I'm like, I don't know, just tag like these 4 people in the Slack channel, one person will go back to.
I hated that. I was like, no, this needs to change.
This needs to change. Yeah. And that was a big struggle we faced for quite a bit of time, right? It took a while to kind of get that ironed out. But if you think about what you've sort of really come in and done, is that you effectively integrate marketing, sales, coaching, onboarding, technology, finance, HR, all together, and make sure everything's working together, so that I can just feed the big ideas. Yeah, so when I came in, the more I worked into R&D, probably like 2-3 months in, I found a bit of a gap. So I found that the coaches were doing their thing, the other side of the other departments, which didn't really exist, they were just kind of a team there doing something else. And what I realized is the communication wasn't quite there, but also they didn't know who to go to and what was happening in each department. And I think that was such a key thing to get the comms right. So if this is going on in coaching, and you know all this great stuff is happening, how does it reflect on sales and marketing? Same for sales and marketing. If all this stuff is going on, what does that mean for the coaches? And there is a link. There's always a link, because the more sales and marketing, the more people we're getting in, the more coaches we need, the more training systems we need, the more everything we need. So it's just tying in all of the different departments. And I think that was, I felt that was really missing when I came in, which is why I wanted to adapt and just take that role on, to make sure that everyone is communicating in the right way, but also everyone knows what's going on, or the key people know what's happening based on their workload. So they're in tune with everything. So that was just integrating the whole area, all the different departments. I felt like that was something that I wanted to do and did. And it's very much aligned now. And I think if I think back to like where the business was like 2 years ago, it was just basically me, an assistant, and then coaches. And it's just crazy. I often wonder, like, how was I doing it all? But I'm still trying to like get used to the new role of myself, and like now my role has changed, and I've got to break so many bad habits and previous ways of working in order to grow the company and to increase our impact. And that's been probably the biggest challenge in the last, I'd say, year or two, is breaking that old way of doing it to the new way of working.
Can you give some examples, your old ways versus new ways?
Yeah, so when it was just me and, let's say, me and an assistant, and then you got a whole coaching team, that was it pretty much, right? So I was doing everything, back office. So as a result of that, I'm working all around the clock, right? From the moment I wake up to the minute I sleep, I'm working. So based off that, I've just built this, effectively a habit of just working and doing and working and doing. And if I'm not working and doing, I start feeling guilty, or I have this voice in my head which says, you need to do something, you need to get on with it, get back on your laptop. And that habit served me to get things going, because you have to do that at the beginning, right? But when you've built the teams and created like mini departments and people who are leading certain aspects of it, then it doesn't really serve you anymore, because all you're doing really is just creating a lot of suffering for yourself unnecessarily. So like the usual symptoms of my skin getting dry on my arm, my scalp getting dry, all the like the classic burnout symptoms have continued to come, and I feel like I've repeated myself on this for quite a while, of this cycle of like identifying it and then thinking I'm gonna do something about it and then not doing anything about it. And then I had this moment a couple of weeks ago. I was like, enough's enough. Like I need to, if I want RNT to develop, and if I want RNT to become the best it can be and create the biggest impact it can be, I need to change the way I work, because the company is different now. It's not the old school ways of like just basically do whatever it takes to get through the day. We've now got a really good team who can help me, and it's not just about me anymore. And I think learning that, I'm still a few weeks into this acceptance phase of doing this, but learning this, I can already see now how much potential we have now, because now I'm not stuck in the weeds all the time. I can actually just see where we're going, and I can empower other people to grow themselves and become the best version of themselves. And that's where I've actually found most of my fulfillment in my work now, is helping develop the core team become the best version of themselves. Because that's what it's all about, right? It's like, if I can help them be the best version of themselves, they can have the biggest impact they want to have in their lives, whether it's with their family or whether it's with their work or their members.
And we talked about this, that it's the first time I think RNT has had a proper solid kind of back-end team.
Yeah.
How have you found kind of growing that team and nurturing and delegating to that team as well?
So this year has been my first like stab at building a back office team, because before, again, it was just me and basically an assistant. So I wanted to really build a back office team. So firstly, to increase my free time, so I can help focus on growing the business, but also just professionalize, structure the business more effectively. So this year I've attempted to build, my first stab at building a back office team, and it's been not been the easiest thing to do, mainly because I've either struggled with managing my own expectations, like having really high expectations for what people can come in and do, and that not being met. Struggling to communicate my expectations has probably been a big one. And finding the right people, whether it's they've worked in too much of a corporate clog before, where some people can't adapt, right? I always spotted that I think you'd actually do better outside of a corporate world. Yeah, but I think a lot of people do better in corporate, because when you're in corporate, there's so many process and systems already set up that coming into a fast-paced startup environment with basically no process system and having to set up from scratch is very difficult for some people. I think if you either got that or you haven't, and that's fine. It's just the wrong place. So finding the right type of people has been difficult, and also just being able to delegate effectively on my end has been hard. Because when you've held on to something for so long, to have to like slowly delegate that, but do it in a way where it's delegation, not application, is really important and hard. So I'm trying to work on that. And so we've had our first stab at building a back office, and I'd say the summer was challenging, to say the least, in bringing that to life. But I think we've come out the other side in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I feel like with the coaching team, Ed and Ivan have just nailed the recruitment, the training, the process of how that works, and they've just done such a great job of hiring great people into the team. From the other side of things, because it's more new roles which we're recruiting for, and I've been involved in some of the recruitment as well, it's been a bit more challenging. And I remember quite a few business owners have said to us, for these newer roles and also more senior roles, we may have to go through quite a few people, because
a few frogs.
Because if we're looking at CVs, cover letters, interviews, that might not give us the full picture. You don't even really get a feel for someone and the full picture once someone's in that role.
And they're up against it.
Because being in a startup, Akash, you make a really good point there, because being in a startup is so different to a corporate world. Like when you're in the corporate world, if you are unsure about, I'm doing this and I need some support with finance, I'll just go to the finance manager. I need some support with marketing, I'll go to the marketing manager. Yeah. Whereas here it's very much like, I need some support with finance. I'm finance. Or I need some support with recruitment. Hang on, I'm recruitment. And I had to really get used to that and build processes and learn. It was such a steep learning curve, and it always is, and that's why I love being in the business, because it's all, and I just love learning. Like I've always said that. For me, it's just I just love knowledge. I love learning, and every day it's pretty much that, working in the business.
Yeah, it's to kiss a few frogs, and like with coaching, I've been recruiting coaches now for over 5 years, so I think we're in a good place where we know the system around it. You know, and in the past I've had to kiss a few frogs there. Right?
Yes, exactly.
So I think we're just in that same place with back office, where sometimes you don't even know quite what the role is sometimes, where you know you're doing something, you know you probably should be doing it, and probably someone better should be doing it for you, but you don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So you don't even know what to list it on Indeed. You're just like, is it this? Could be that.
Well, that's where I've adopted like a HR position as well in recruitment, and I'm very strict now on what roles do we actually need. And when Ed's there saying, "Oh, we need 2 new coaches," I'm like, "Great, sounds good." When you're there saying, "I need this, okay, let's deep dive a bit more. What is this person doing? What's the job description?" Because it is a very new role for us, and no one in the business has done this role outside of you, and probably a bit of me as well. Which is why it's got to be really clear for that person coming in. So. Yeah, that's been interesting with the whole recruitment, finding the right people. We have kissed a few frogs, and I think that we're now heading in the right direction. I feel like our team are very strong, and it's just nice to be surrounded by that work ethic, that positivity, that high performing team. Like it's just really, I love it. I love speaking to all of them.
Yeah. Ivan said literally the same thing to me before we hit record today. He was like, we just need to bottle it up and just bottle this culture up and just keep it going.
Yeah, that's pretty much
it. That's the key thing, right? And I've also realised that my role is in part of that. It's in protecting the culture, it's in protecting what makes RNT special and what makes us unique, both from a member perspective but also internally. Because internally is key to helping the members, right? So what's next for RNT then? What are we working on that would be cool to sort of talk about today?
So some insider news. So some of the things that I've been working on since I started is supporting and managing the build of the technology. So that's something I'm very passionate about. I've been working alongside Ed with that, and there's great things that have happened over the last 6-7 months, and the members will know there's been big changes in our platform, and something that's coming out really soon is an RNT app. It's a companion app which is for our members only, for them to be on the go and input their stats, input their data. It just makes it easier to use, and instead of being on a laptop or a web app platform. So this is something that we've been working on. Really excited to launch this as well. It'll soon be in for testing. So yeah, from an external point of view, this app is coming out. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, the companion app. So it's a companion app. So the main goal of it is to spike accountability and to help with the data tracking. And yeah, just drive the results through better accountability. And I'm excited to have it come out as well. And I think you made a good point there. Now the web has come leaps and bounds in the past 6 to 9 months, and you know we've learned so much about technology that we could probably do a whole podcast just on that. Just how building technology, even just the thought process around it. We can maybe touch on it, but seeing the model really come together and seeing the results that it brings, most importantly, has been exceptional. You know, effectively, there's only 3 parts to this model. It's execution, so you get the job done and you don't fall off on your accountability. It's engagement, which is speaking with your coaches, speaking with your cohorts, being in the community. And then there's education, so you keep your results for life. You learn how to stay healthy, fit, strong, year round for the rest of your life. That's it. Execution, engagement, and education. And if you nail those 3 things along our 5-phase methodology, the results are inevitable. And what the technology does is it gives it an all-in-one place to make this happen, and effectively is becoming, or is already, the world's leading transformation platform and program for busy professionals who are time-strapped, juggling multiple priorities, who want to get into the best shape possible, but also learn how to keep it off. And that's the big gap that we're here to fill. And what's really cool is when people come inquire about RNT now, they come to us because we're a long-term commitment, 12 months long, because they're fed up of yo-yo dieting, and because they want a lifestyle solution. They want to learn how to keep this weight off. We're the only place in the world that's hammering the message about getting shape for life, and how to do it. You know, we've actually, here's another cool bit. In year 2 of Pro now begins in October. So the second layer to the methodology, which is R&T Advanced. Now R&T Advanced, what we've done really cool with this, and this is only for people that have gone through the first year, what we've done with this, it's been spearheaded by Ivan, our head of education, and the education that we're giving to our members, firstly, you can't find it anywhere else on the net, but most of all, it's all geared towards what it actually takes to stay in shape. So it's things like how to have your cake and eat it, how to move away from tracking into becoming intuitively eating, a bunch of different topics, and each month we'll have a focal point and a theme for the coaching itself. So it's really exciting because this is like the next layer to the first layer. The first layer, you go all in and you're gonna know what to do for the rest of your life. The second layer is like, okay, how do you crystallize this now to really make sure you're set up for success? Because all the stats show that for every year you stay in shape, your chances of keeping it off increase more. So that's been really exciting in seeing the model and seeing the platform all come together. But most of all, like I said at the beginning, if there's not transformations on the other side, it doesn't matter. And the transformations we're getting are some of the best I've ever seen. In fact, some of the ones we're going to release soon are like, I'd say, hands down, all in the top 10 for historically R&T, which is a credit to a lot of the work that we put in over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting as well with the what you talk about with the transformations, because even since I've been in, I've introduced a lot of dashboards. Sorry, team. Yeah. I've been loving data tracking and seeing what this data can drive. And one of the big things on there are things like transformations. So how
we track transformations. We track so many data points.
Every day, every week.
Transformation percentage per week, engagement percentage per week, how many people are tracking their weight, how does it impact results? That's the only thing that matters really. And what we're seeing is with every single cohort that begins, the results get better and better and better and better, which is proof in the pudding, but also just really reinforces that every improvement cycle we go through is being reflected. I think what you've helped do is bring the data to become really visible. One of the conversations I have with the coaches sometimes is like, is this a new problem or is this a problem we've always had? And the answer we always end up is, oh, we've always had this problem, we just never knew we had it.
Yeah, and now
and that's crazy. One of the things I was saying earlier is like, we always seem to have this group of people where they're meant to hit checkpoint this month, but then it gets delayed to the next month or the month after. Is that a new problem or is that an old problem? It's like, no, I think it's we now predict everyone's checkpoint. We drive people to that. Yeah. And because we have visibility of this internally, we're like, oh wow, we didn't know this before. Now we know it. Yeah. And the data we're collecting on what goes into an actual body transformation is just mind-boggling. Yeah. And I think one day there's probably something we can publish there, right? But I think what it does is it's given us visibility on things we didn't know, but has always been a problem. So really, we could have diagnosed it 5 years ago, but we didn't because we didn't know. But what we do then is we use the data to then feed in improvements to everyone really, and then watch what happens. And it's always good to see the positive cycles when they happen. Sometimes obviously nothing happens, but that's just part of the game. That's just part of testing. Yeah. But I think it's that relentless testing mindset of how can we get better results for our members is what is the culture we've really cultivated really well. Yeah,
it's that whole kind of continuous feedback loop. We see this data point, okay, what does that trigger? It triggers this. That means that we do this in order to then get back to improve this exact stat. It's almost looking at what the data is, how do we improve each thing, and what needs to be done, whether that's internally or through our platform or through our member engagement, emails, whatever it is, in order to improve the stat. And we're looking at that week on week, if not day on day, just to ensure that we're continuously looking at that loop and seeing what impact we're making and just seeing how it impacts us as well.
Nice. And to wrap up today's podcast, what would be, let's say some people listening here, like they're either in business with their partner or they're thinking about it, or one of them owns a business and thinking, oh, when you come involved, what advice would you give? And what would be the big things to be careful about before going into it?
I'd say firstly, look at what your current communication is like. So as I said, we went into this with a strong foundation. What I meant by that is we were communicating really clearly. If something was not working for us. In our personal relationship, we would be really open to sharing it, where I know some people might be a bit more reserved because it would potentially lead to a conflict. But I think we've both learned that we're not really people who like that kind of conflict. We're people who like to talk it through and come up with a solution. So we did that in our personal life already. And that's when I thought, okay, we have this foundation. Why not? Let's just go for it, because it feels like we're at that stage where we can openly talk about things. We explored it in a bit more detail around the strengths that we both have, and it worked. It seemed to work. So that's probably one thing, the whole kind of foundation.
What's the hardest thing when you're working with me?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, I'd say the hardest thing is that we work in very different styles, and sometimes it's to get you to see things the way I see things. And as you mentioned, like the kind of visionary, you need time, space to think, whereas I'm more like, let's just get it done, this is how it's done, this is the kind of regimented way of doing things. So that's been quite challenging, I'd say, when sometimes you have all these like new things that you want to do, and I'm just like, no, we've still got to do this one before we do that, and let's do this to 100%, not just 10%. Start something new, because we're just not going to get anywhere. So that's been quite challenging, but I think we're starting to address that more, and we've been working on that over the last few months, just to really understand our relationship in that perspective and how we can help each other, rather than me being like, no, we can't do that, and just squash all the ideas, because the ideas are great. And I'd also say another challenge is you think very long term. So with this whole visionary piece, you're thinking, what's happening in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And I'm still there thinking, what's happening in the day to day? What's happening tomorrow? Because I'm very much more around, okay, are things ticking along? So that's been quite challenging as well, getting into your head, the way you think, and understanding the bigger picture. How about for you?
What was the question?
In terms of what advice would you give?
Advice I'd give is, I think it has to be a complementary relationship. I think you need to have clear roles and responsibilities that you own. I think if you've got the same strengths, it's going to be tough. And I would say the thing we probably haven't touched on is you've got to work on boundaries.
Oh, that's massive, yeah.
Yeah, I think if I was thinking about what struggles I've faced over the last 8 months, so it's probably in boundaries. It's like knowing when is okay to say, hey, check this email out, and when it's time to just chill out and just be husband and wife. And I think being able to flip between the two is a skill that we're learning better and better.
Yeah.
But I think you need to respect boundaries as well. Like, if I want to just chill out and you're telling me about something, I'm like, don't tell me this today, tell me it tomorrow. There's been a few times where I'll be like, yeah, if I don't need to know it, then tell me it tomorrow when I am working.
Yeah.
I think that's something probably not touched on, but just appreciating boundaries for each other, because otherwise it can become like a melting pot.
Yeah, that's happened as well.
That's happened, yeah.
Yeah, there's been times where, we're both guilty of this. Like if we're out for a walk, our morning walk, which obviously before we worked together, we wouldn't really necessarily talk very much in depth about business. But then I'd start talking about stuff, or you'd start talking about stuff, and I'm just like, oh. Or you'd be like, oh, this is.
I think it's
the right
fine
time
to talk about it though. I think it's just knowing when is not a right time.
Exactly.
Because if you're in a business together, you're always going to think about work.
That's true.
And you're always going to want to talk about it because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
I think the key thing here is to know when the other person doesn't want to talk about it. Because otherwise I'm always up for talking about it. But if I don't want to talk about it, then hearing about it is just like, I'd rather not know right now. Yeah. I think that's the key thing. It's like probably creating a filtering around that. It's like, look, I've got something, do you want to talk about it or not? No, not now. Or tell me here. I think that's key. That'd probably be the number one piece of advice. Any other bits?
I think that's everything.
Cool.